Alright, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel once again. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more generally about a game. Today's going to be another impressions video. Hope you all had a good weekend, and I had a great weekend. We did a lot of filming, so by the end of October you all will be seeing another film. It's going to be pretty good. I have a really good feeling about the reception of this one, and I hope you'll enjoy it when it comes out. I'll have a trailer for it sometime next week, and this film will be coming out on Halloween, so just a little bit of a heads up. There should be a trailer next Friday, so just be ready for that. I'm really excited to get this film out, but anyways, we're gonna get right into the point of the video. Today we are going to be talking about Hell Let Loose, a game whose title I will have to limit in this video because YouTube is an algorithm, or has an algorithm, that doesn't really like words that aren't really that good. I don't curse anyways, obviously, as seen by my videos, but just saying the name of the game Hell Let Loose is going to trigger the algorithm like some guy who's just lost his 4th game on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So without further ado, I do want to talk about this game and tell you all a little bit about what I think and what I want to see for the future of this game, and whether I'll keep on covering it on this channel or not, because that is a question that I want to consistently answer when I talk about these games that I'm covering, specifically in regard to indie games. So Hell Let Loose, according to its Steam description, is a realistic World War II first-person shooter with open battles of 100 players with infantry, tanks, artillery, a dynamically shifting front line, and a unique resource-based strategic metagame. This is World War II at a scale you've never played before. The game is developed by Black Matter and is published by Team 17. Team 17 are famous for publishing games like The Escapists, which is a pretty fun game. I didn't even realize they published that, so it is a publisher that I'm fairly familiar with. This is kind of one of the more realistic games that they've published, with realistic graphics and all that stuff, so it's pretty cool to see them kind of branching out and stuff, but that's beside the point. What has Black Matter, the developers, managed to do with Hell Let Loose? And I'm here to talk about what I think they've managed to do correctly and what I think they've managed to do incorrectly with this game. So the game is a World War II first-person shooter. Just at the forefront, it is very much so World War II. You will see your teammates and the enemies are all decked out in World War II outfits that are very, very representative of the war times, and they look really good. I'm not a World War II buff, but I know that these are pretty accurate based on what other people have been saying, so it's clear that they've done a lot of attention to detail with their character models and such, and that's kind of where my first huge positive compliment for this game comes up, is the presentation. A lot of games I look at for their gameplay. I don't play a lot of games. I play a small amount of games with... I play a lot of different games with a fairly similar premise. I play a lot of tactical shooters like Rainbow Six and Squad, and I wanted to see what Hell Let Loose had to offer with its free weekend. And what I saw at the forefront of this game is that Black Matter has put a huge emphasis on the way their game is presented. I feel as though Hell Let Loose is one of the few first-person shooters I have ever played that actually puts at the forefront its presentation of the time frame. It's almost like an art form within itself. The game, and I'll talk about how that art form relates to other aspects of the game later, but what I really have to say is that the presentation of Hell Let Loose is unrealistically gorgeous, or should I say realistically gorgeous. I felt like I could have been in all those locations. All the textures and the gun models and the sound design, it's all like an art form. I do really feel like Hell Let Loose is one of the few first-person shooter games that I have played that really feels like an art form within itself. There's a certain art to the intense settings that are portrayed in Hell Let Loose, and I know I said I originally wasn't going to say the name of the game a lot, but here we are. Oh well. Anyways, the atmosphere is one of the things that really contributes to this game's art form. The sound design, the binaural sound design, tanks flying to your left, tanks flying, did I just say that? Tanks riding to your left, planes flying above you, and then your teammates walking around you as you trudge through dirt and snow and sand. It all just gives you this like tension that I have rarely felt in a first-person shooter. And I would say this is definitely one of those games that may give you a jump scare or two when you're first playing it, because the sound design is just so jarring. And that really is one of the best things of this game, is the sound design. Black Matter have done a phenomenal job with making the gun sounds. I was using the M1 Garand a lot, and it actually has the little pinging sound when all the bullets run out, so that was much appreciated. The audio is, it's just so good. There's a particular term for this audio design that you all probably know. I'll let you all figure it out, but the audio design definitely gives you feelings that you wouldn't feel normally, if you get my drift. Anyways, the biggest aspect of Hell Let Loose that intrigues me is how similar its design is to Squad. Squad is another shooter that I play a lot that I may cover since it just got a new update, but Hell Let Loose is a very, very similar game to Squad, down right to its UI, specifically with there's little dots that hang over friendlies' heads, and when you aim at them, it's the same with Squad. It's this moment that I absolutely hate, but it's like so, like when you see someone running like 100 meters in front of you, you take a look at them, and there's this moment where you don't know if they're a teammate or not, and you have to be prepared if they're a teammate, and you have to be prepared if they're not a teammate. If they're a teammate, you don't want to shoot them, obviously. If they're not a teammate, then you want to shoot them. And it's this moment that I first experienced in Squad. Squad was the first game kind of like this that I've played. No hit markers, extremely realistic audio design, and like realistic map design. It all adds up to make a very, very intense experience. I would agree when the descriptions say this is World War II at a scale you've never played before. It's a very, very different type of game, and I don't really know how to say it other than that it's just different. There's a lot of inspiration from Squad here, but Squad and Hell Let Loose both have their own places. Squad, I would say, is definitely more hyper-realistic. Hell Let Loose is different because there is no stamina, whereas Squad does have stamina. In Hell Let Loose, you can sprint forever, but that actually does make sense because the maps in Hell Let Loose are overwhelmingly massive. There are a lot of and I'll talk about that later, but just know that Hell Let Loose's maps are based on some of the biggest war zones of World War II. I can't recall all of the map names, but the two maps that distinguish themselves the most for me this weekend. Obviously, this free weekend launched very effectively with the release of Omaha Beach, one of the most famous, I would say one of the most infamous battles of World War II, and I think it was genius marketing to have their free weekend when this battle gets released, or rather the map. But the map does play out very similarly to how the battle would have played out. I think it's the US starts on the boats as they go into shore, and the German front line is just mowing people down with machine guns. It is brutal. It really is. Like there's no arcadiness about it. There's no sound design. it's just gunshots going off. It is very reflective of the beginning of Saving Private Ryan, and it's brutal in that sense. Like, Hell Let Loose does not let down on its sense of brutality, and that's why I say it's an art form. Hell Let Loose almost feels like I hate to say it like this, but it's like a love letter to how intense and how brutal and how unforgiving World War II was. And that's something in itself that can be admired, that it really does. Of course, I'm not aware of what happened during World War II, but we all know the horrors that occurred on Omaha Beach, and the fact that it emulates that so perfectly, and it's just so brutal. And I have to respect Black Matter for not holding out on that intensity at all, because a lot of developers would have kind of held back on that a little bit, but I'm glad that Black Matter actually kept to their guns and made it that way. The other map that hit me hard was Foy. I know a lot of people in the Hell Let Loose community don't like Foy. It's a very open map. I like it because I like snow maps, and I think it's a really, aside from the fact that it's a snow map, I like how open it is. It makes the firefights intense, and it makes it interesting, and you never let your guard down. When I was in the forest map, I forget the name of that map, but there's a really heavily forested map. And when I was on that map, I felt like I could kind of run around, crouch occasionally, but then run around again. In Foy, there was a moment, I didn't get it on recording, but there was a moment where I was prone in the snow for what felt like 15 minutes. And that is not a joke. It was really quite an insane moment. And that's kind of where I want to transition here. There are a lot of moments in Hell Let Loose that you will not find in another game. Squad is intense, yes. Squad is a very intense game. But there's something about the historical setting of Hell Let Loose combined with the intensity that make moments that you will never forget. There's this moment where it was actually on that forested map, ironically enough. I think it's called Utah Beach. There's like a beach part and then there's a forested part. And there's like a brick building that I remember specifically because I was in this brick building and I was on the top floor, proned, looking through one of these small windows. The building is like a farm type building. I was proned on this building and I was scoping with my M1 Garand, and I saw from this far field out to the whatever direction I was looking, I saw this field that was starting to swarm with enemies. I would say at least 6 or 7 enemies at the very least. I saw them coming down, and it was this moment I will never forget. I stared down my sight and I looked at them and I just started shooting, and they all went down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know if I'm putting up gameplay, uncut gameplay, and I don't know if I got it there. That match, I went with a 3.0 KD, which I think is actually the best KD I've had in any game ever. Like, not even a joke. And it's just one of those, I feel like it's one of those gaming moments in my life I will never forget. Just that it wasn't a proud moment. I don't know why. It was just so brutal. When I was finished, I was like, dang. And like after that, more enemies came down and they got blown up by a mortar. It was one of those brutal moments that made me realize what type of game I was playing. And I realized in that moment, this is an art form, but more than anything, this really does feel like a tribute to how intense World War II was. And it's realistic. It is horrendously realistic. No hit markers. Your teammates don't have anything over their head until you actually look at them. And the time to kill is so quick. With the M1 Garand, I didn't even have to headshot to down someone in one shot. Those 6 people I killed, I probably got like 2 headshots out of those 6. The time to kill is realistic and it's brutal, and the gunplay is realistic and it's brutal. Black Matter have done a fantastic job with this game. I play a lot of indie games. Let's just put that out there. I do play a lot of indie games. And there are very few of them that actually managed to impress me. I would say of 2019, Squad was actually the first realistic tactical shooter that impressed me. I was going to play Insurgency, but Insurgency has kind of gone off the rails, hasn't it? So a lot of YouTubers that I watch have actually been making videos about that recently, so just a side note, but Squad impressed me. And then Hell Let Loose. I would say Squad impressed me, but Hell Let Loose blew me away with how good it is. There are a few things. Just generally, I think the heavily forested map is a spawn kill fest for the most part. I did really bad, but that's just because I wasn't aiming good. But I felt like it really was, at the very least, a spawn camp, sort of. And even when I was running around, it really did feel like the map was kind of not random, but it was a little bit predictable. I like my gunfights to be dynamic, and it felt like the gunfights were all very stagnant in the forested map. Utah Beach was decent. I liked it, but it wasn't as good as Omaha and Foy. And this general sense of the game that I have, it is hyper realistic, but there are a lot of things in these realistic games that I have a lot of trouble with understanding. I love low time to kills. Everyone in my community knows that low time to kill is my personal favorite type of time to kill, or high time to kill rather, is what I prefer to have in a video game, especially a realistic video game, which is why Modern Warfare is such a game to me. It's such a refreshing thing for the AAA gaming industry, is to have a short time to kill in a big mainstream video game. My number one problem with Hell Let Loose right now is, first and foremost, the community of Hell Let Loose. I jumped in on the free weekend because I wanted to try it and see if I would like it. I was kind of introduced to this, I don't know if it's the server I got into or what, but the very first server I got into was this server that was playing on Omaha Beach. I got on Omaha Beach to try out the new offensive mode, which is a good mode. You're basically just trying to take point to point to point until you take the German front line or the United States front line, depending on which side you're on. I liked the mode overall. I did. I think it was a good mode. The community at first was not very welcoming. I got into my first game and people were already talking about how I sucked. People were getting in for the free weekend, and according to the veterans of Hell Let Loose that were playing in there, a lot of the times they were just generally being really toxic and talking about how accidental time to kills mean that you should probably uninstall the game. They're talking about how we need to do this, need to do that, need to become masters and pros at the game within our first hour. There are some people that can do that, but the general public cannot. And it was just kind of annoying to me. But I didn't really, it didn't really affect my experience. I'm just saying that it's something that I was at first really like, why do you care? It was almost like they were gatekeeping new people on the free weekend when it's an indie game and they want people to play with, but yet they were gatekeeping. It just confused me. But that's not my biggest problem with the game. My main problem with the game comes with the map size. I said this earlier that Foy is a great example of the map that I really like because it's huge and the firefights are dynamic. I am not really confident in the idea that a game like this should require people to create spawns in order for you to spawn. I, as a player, prefer the Battlefield style of spawning, where you can spawn at places that you capture. I just think that it's really important to keep the flow of gameplay going in any game. Even a realistic game, you need to keep that flow going no matter what. And I think Hell Let Loose primarily lost it for me when there were no spawns created that I could deploy at. And we had already taken like 4 zones, or sectors as they're called. We had already taken 4 sectors and no spawns were created. So I'd spawn at the home base of the US or Germany, and I'd have to just sprint for upwards of legitimately 15 minutes to get to where I need to be. And that's a problem. I know they're probably never going to do it, but I think the reason Battlefield stays so prominent as the top large-scale shooter, they have done really good at streamlining the spawn process. The way Battlefield does it is the way I prefer it. Now, I've put a lot more time into Battlefield 5 than I have with Hell Let Loose. So once I get those times kind of evened out, that's when I'll be able to make a comparison. And I actually do want to make a comparison between the two videos, more of a personal preference type of comparison. Because right now, I think that I prefer Battlefield 5 still. Battlefield 5 is a game that hasn't gotten a lot of content, and both of the games, Battlefield 5 and Hell Let Loose, have their spots in my heart as games that I enjoy. But that's just because I like large-scale combat, and it's kind of hard for me to not like a game that has large-scale combat. It's just a matter of how good is the core gameplay. And the core gameplay in Hell Let Loose is excellent. But I think my biggest problem with Hell Let Loose is the spawning and the fact that you have to have those spawns. It's the same exact problem I have with Squad. And I've heard that Hell Let Loose is soon going to be getting wheeled vehicles, which will definitely change my opinions if we can just drive vehicles like we can in Squad. The difference in Squad is that you can just hop into a vehicle and drive all the way there. The problem comes when you can't spawn back on that vehicle. I think you should be able to spawn in vehicles. I think you should be able to spawn on points that you take. And I think you should be able to spawn on squad members. And that's something that Squad actually does have, but Hell Let Loose does not have. And I think Hell Let Loose is trying to emulate that realism, but there's a point, I think, where you should realize that you don't need to make it that insane. But that's going to be a topic for another video. I do want to make a video where I talk about the realism of Hell Let Loose, the realism of Squad, and all that stuff. But this was a video about Hell Let Loose, and I've said my take, and here's what I overall think. I think Hell Let Loose is a game superbly in its presentation, superb in its gunplay, superb in its sound design, superb in its level design. But that level design is deeply tarnished by a spawn system that I think could use a lot of work. And if that work goes in, and if those wheeled vehicles do come in, which it says they will, so I think they will, they've actually made really good on their roadmap from what I've seen. So I'm glad to see that they're staying on top of things. They seem to be really dedicated to making the game good. When those wheeled vehicles get added, I will revise my impressions. But for now, I think that the fact that there's no really quick or efficient way to get back to spawns without having a spawn to create. I think you get what I'm saying. You have to create a spawn, a garrison spawn, or I forgot what the other one is called. I know there's a garrison spawn, or a squad spawn, I think is the other one. Other than that, you can't spawn anywhere unless those things are there. And I think that should be changed to where you can spawn on the points you take or on squad mates. This is just one man's thoughts. But I think that the fact that the spawns are kind of, to me, a little bit botched, that's not going to affect me not buying the game. I'm unquestionably going to be covering this game more. I'm going to be playing it, streaming it on my Twitch channel, which is in the description. Always in the description. Twitch.tv/Gladys. But anyways, those are my impressions of Hell Let Loose. Right now, the game is at a 3.5 out of 5 for me in terms of its rating, in terms of what I personally think about the game. I hope this game has a really bright future. I think it does. The player base seems to be really, really happy with the game right now, with the game sitting at almost an 80% on Steam, which is really, really good for an indie game, especially a first-person shooter that's in World War II. Good job, Black Matter. Legitimately. You all have made something really, really special with Hell Let Loose, and I look forward to following this game for as long as I possibly can. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. I'll see you all on Wednesday for another video essay. Take it easy, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.